Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's weekly energy boost. My name is Elisheva, and for this week and next week's episodes, I am all by my lonesome. Eitan is traveling, and I decided it's a great opportunity not only to share with you guys the weekly energy and how to take advantage of it, and what are the gifts coming at us this week, but also we receive so many questions from listeners every week. And I decided that this week and next week we'll take some time to answer some of your questions and to get to those topics that we don't necessarily address directly in any individual weekly energy boost. So this week we're focusing on cultivating closeness with the Creator, what that means, not only the unique opportunity of this week, but how to develop a practice of conversing with the Creator, becoming close with the Creator, and really distinguishing. I think that for a lot of us, we perceive God or universe, spirit, the Creator, whatever you want to call it, as a force that is outside of us. And we'll understand better today that that force is not only inside us, it's inside of everything all around us. And by cultivating closeness with that force, we strengthen ourselves in ways that maybe we didn't realize, not only realize was possible, but realize that we're missing. What a powerful ingredient it is, that closeness to have in our lives. And in a way, it's hard to perceive what we're missing when we've never had it, but it's something that is so easily accessible. And I'm excited for those of you who haven't embarked on this effort to begin it today and to experience the beauty of having that closeness in your life. Weekly Energy Boost is a 7-day spiritual weather forecast where we provide our listeners with the most powerful and practical tools to navigate the coming 7 days from the wisdom and tools of Kabbalah. And in doing that every week, we end up sharing practical tools and wisdom you can use any time of the year. And what's interesting for me, now, of course, we're in the month of Leo, and Leo is a very intense month energetically. I'm sure you've been feeling it. We talked a little bit about it last week and the week before, but the truth is the intensity of the month of Leo, and the same is true about the month of Cancer last month, is that most of the let's say 10 of the months of the year share their influence, share their ruling planet with another sign. So for example, Pisces and Sagittarius share Jupiter, and Capricorn and Aquarius share Saturn. Cancer and Leo have one celestial body all to themselves. And the intensity of the energy can be really overwhelming. I know you've all been feeling it, or at least those of you who've reached out to ask about it, but I feel it's important to place an emphasis on it and let everybody know that the month of Leo is different from the other months of the year because normally the energy increases in the month. So let's say we have the new moon. We always talk about that. The new moon is the beginning of the month. The moon is empty of the sun's light. And as the moon grows in visibility, the light of the sun is reaching it more completely. The full moon is the peak of the energy of a regular month. And then that energy diminishes through the second half of the month. As the moon wanes, so too the energy of the month wanes. In the month of Leo, it's actually opposite, that the first half of the month is diminished in its energy, and the second half of the month it increases. And I bring that up because we're now in the basically second week of the month of Leo. This weekend we have the full moon, which of and within itself is a very powerful day. On the Kabbalistic calendar, it's called Tu B'Av. It's known as the holiday of love because it's the only day of the year in which the sun and the moon share the skies equally. It's the full moon in the month that is ruled by the sun. So that shared dominance creates an alignment between the masculine and feminine energies of every individual, of every process that's happening in the world, and that energy of balance and harmony strengthens our own soulmate relationships, whether we're in one already, bringing more soulmate energy to it, or we're looking for our soulmate. It's a huge day of download of that energy because there is so much balance and harmony. So I'm also bringing that up because even though last week and this week were intense is even not the right word, I want you guys to know that as we build up to the full moon and then afterwards, there will be a lightening of energy. And these, the weekly energy will support us also in handling both the intensity and then the de-escalation. So this week, as I said before, we're talking about cultivating closeness with the Creator. And it's definitely a something that we emphasize in our classes out the gate. This concept is not reserved for the advanced. We teach in the very first classes in our Kabbalah 1 courses that because like attracts like and light attracts light, part of our work in the physical reality is to become as much like the light of the Creator as we are able to, given our personality, our challenges, right? Everybody has their own gifts and their own limitations. But as an overall concept, the spiritual work is about taking those aspects of us that are not light-like, not aligned with the Creator, and moving it into a greater likeness, a greater affinity. So what that means in the day-to-day is being mindful of the negative thought patterns, speech patterns, emotional patterns, and behaviors that we have, and both proactively seeking to transform them. Let's say you identify that you have an anger issue, understanding what's triggering those anger issues, seeking to avoid situations. And when I say avoid, I don't mean rejecting and denying, but if you know that, politics, watching the news about political things sets you off, being more discerning about how much of that kind of news you consume is not avoidance. It's, I know I have an issue and I know this provokes me. I'm not going to walk so headfirst into those situations that provoke me. So proactively working on those qualities that we know are not light-like, but also in the moment, right? Proactive is, I know I have this issue and I'm working on healing it and transforming it. Reactively working on it is in every moment that I find myself triggered. And again, using the example of anger, which is definitely a Leo response, being mindful, being able to practice pausing before the anger train leaves the station, let's say, slowing down our experience so that we can identify, okay, right now I am feeling out of control, I'm feeling victim, I'm feeling blame, whatever the internal lack or internal discomfort is, and then recognizing that my normal response of getting angry is not a long-term solution. Getting angry in the moment might make me feel better than feeling out of control feels, but it's not solving my feeling of being out of control, and it's not solving the triggering that I'm experiencing that causes me to lose control or lose that sense of control. So being mindful about those parts of us that are not light-like, and I really can't think of I know I like to simplify things a lot. I can't think of a simpler way to say it than that. And if you're looking for a practical way to get to that, simply look at all of the ways you get in your own way. If you're not clear about it, ask someone who's close to you. What do you see are the patterns and behaviors or reactions I have that you wish for me, for my own benefit, I wouldn't have anymore? If it's being stubborn, if it's jealousy, if it's insecurity, if it's laziness, the spectrum is huge. Look at those things, and I would say look at the things that are most frequent. If you're looking for something to work on, the lowest hanging fruit is probably the negative behaviors or thought processes that are most common or most frequent for you, and really developing awareness about it, being mindful about it, working on it both proactively, and then developing a practice for when it happens in a reactive way. And I think that I've said this many times, the hardest thing about being on the path of Kabbalah is that self-awareness, being honest with yourself. It's very easy to look at when we're on a spiritual path, to look at our negative qualities and say, in the scheme of things, it's not that bad, right? My laziness, it's not that bad. My judgmentalness, it's not that bad, right? There are people who are, killing others or stealing or destroying people's reputations. I'm okay. The danger in perceiving the opportunity to transform in a way, putting up the banner of that, I'm not that terrible, so, we're going to leave well enough alone, is that in each of our lifetimes, we come here for the sake of that transformation, right? We spoke about that last week with Daniel Naor, and if you haven't listened to last week's episode, I highly recommend it. Being mindful that what brings us into every lifetime is the work of transformation. The fact that we may have a profession, a family, a business, a community that we contribute to, that's the platform on which the transformation is meant to take place. But the real purpose is the transformation. So being mindful and using that, the question I often ask myself, of course, but also my students is, how can you grow closer in likeness to the Creator? Closeness with the Creator is not only about having a relationship, and we'll talk about that as well, but the first stage in developing closeness is closeness in liking, closeness in quality, closeness in affinity. How light-like, how Creator-like are you? And so the part of us that is the Creator is our soul, right? The Kabbalists teach many beautiful stories about how literally every person's soul is a spark or a fragment of the Creator, and that homing device lives within us at all times, even though sometimes it may be difficult to perceive it, right? Sometimes we're so wrapped up in a cycle of anger or sadness or needing to control things, or just being so frustrated that it's hard to feel that spark inside of all of us, inside of us. So part of the work in developing that likeness, if you want to look at it in that metaphor, is every time I become aware of a quality or a behavior or a thought process that's not light-like, and I work to remove that or heal it or transform it, what ends up happening is that there's one less layer between me and really hearing that homing device, tuning into that spark inside of me and having that be a more dominant force in my day-to-day. So the benefit on transforming it is, yes, of course, you're fulfilling your purpose in being born, but also the more light-like you are in your thoughts, words, emotions, and actions, the more you will perceive your own divinity, your own lightness, your own soul. And so the benefit is twofold. It's not only accomplishing your purpose, and a lot of times people come to study Kabbalah and they say, I'm looking for my purpose, and they think that their purpose has to do with their profession or what they do with their time, and it is very meaningful to find something to do that you do feel connected to, but it's also possible to find purpose in things that you don't necessarily feel connected to. So maybe that's for another episode, but the idea of growing to be more light-like is a big part of the work. The second leg of cultivating closeness with the Creator is about closeness, meaning to have a close relationship with that force, with that energy, with, again, you have to use the word that feels most natural for you, otherwise the teaching isn't going to penetrate. God, Creator, light, Spirit, universe, Hashem, whatever it is that speaks to you, use that language and think about what it would mean for you to feel closer with that energy, with that entity, with that force. So to me, a big part of that closeness is about communication, is about prayer. And when I say prayer, we've talked in different episodes before about how there's scripted prayer and unscripted prayer, right? Scripted prayer is something that has been committed to writing, that there is a formula. There are often spiritual codes in those formulas that help us tap into different energies. And if you're interested in learning more about that, let us know. And I'm happy to send you resources, whether on our website, on social media. Let us know. And that's definitely, I guess we could even have a whole episode about scripted prayer. I believe we have, but it is what it is. For all intents and purposes right now, if you're interested in learning more about that, I'm happy to send you the support. But for today's discussion, it's much more about the unscripted prayer. Having that open dialogue with the Creator, with your soul, if that's a more comfortable way for you to look at it, really asking, moving inward when things happen. Now, what do I really mean when I say that? There are different ways to go about it. There's some people engage in literal talking out loud to the Creator, literally, going to the park, sitting in your car, closing the door of your bedroom and really having an out loud conversation. It is very powerful. It is profound. And especially if, when you hear me talking about it, you're cringing a little bit, it can be a really fundamental shift for you to speak out loud to the Creator, really articulating as though the Creator is right next to you, because the Creator is right next to you. And that's one of the things that helps break down the wall of that we perceive is between us and the upper worlds, between us and the heavenly courts. Again, whatever resonates with you. God, according to Kabbalah, doesn't sit on a throne in heaven with a long beard, in a gown, with lightning coming out of one finger and lottery numbers coming out of the other. God is the force that runs the whole show, and there is a spark of the light of the Creator in everything. Obviously, you can recognize it in other humans, you can recognize it in animals, you can even say, well, look, fruits and vegetables, plants, flowers, trees, obviously they have to have a spark because they're alive. But according to Kabbalah, the microphone I'm talking into, the device that you're listening to me through, every single thing in physical existence must have some spark of the light of the Creator in it in order to exist. So the plate that you broke yesterday by accident doesn't exist anymore. The spark was released, and that plate finished its tikkun, its correction process. A person gives away or throws out a sweater because it has a hole in it. That sweater no longer has that spark in it. I mean, of course, it's possible to upcycle and things like that, but hopefully you understand the idea. You ate carrot sticks yesterday. There was light in those carrot sticks, and you elevate those sparks of light, meaning it's almost like you free them. They were in the carrot. Now they're free, released. And that whole idea that there's light inside of everything takes the concept of communicating with the Creator to another level, because you can speak to the fruit that you're about to eat. You can speak to the keys that you've lost, that you're running around your house looking for, meaning having that constant connection to the spiritual essence of everything and everyone around you is part of cultivating that closeness with the Creator. When you have to have a tough conversation with someone that you love, talking to their soul before you speak to their body or their brain, talking to their soul is a version of talking to the Creator, because it takes what you're about to do from being physical, from being material, mundane. We call it 1%. The Kabbalists teach that the physical reality that we perceive is only 1% of the reality. The other 99% is spiritual, is metaphysical. So when you talk to the other person's soul, soul to soul, your soul to their soul, you achieve much more progress and develop a greater sense of closeness even with that person, because it's not only about their body and their brain, their ego, it's about their intrinsic identity, which is their soul. So cultivating closeness with the Creator is also about cultivating a relationship with all of the light around you, with the people in your life, with the nature, the natural world around you, cultivating a closeness with the light in the walls of your home. Like there's so many ways, and people do that often through practice of gratitude, really being connected to the blessing behind all of the things that you have in your life. But going back to the idea of talking out loud to the Creator, a big part of cultivating that closeness is being in constant dialogue with that force. And I'm going to borrow a concept from my husband. He often tells people, especially if you have kids, right? What's a greater pleasure than when your kids come to you and ask you for advice about something or share with you a struggle that they're going through? In a way, we can think about the Creator as the ultimate parent, and we are the children. And simply by saying to the Creator, whether again it's out loud or in your heart, in your head, I need your help with this. I'm struggling. I'm at a loss for words. I'm at a loss for resources. Whatever the situation is going on, positive or negative. And that's an important distinction as well in this conversation, because according to the teachings of Kabbalah, everything that happens to us, whether we regard it as positive or negative, serves a singular purpose. And that's to get us closer to the Creator. And I'm going to say that again because I probably should have started with that. Every single thing that happens to us in our lives, whether we regard it as positive or negative, is intended to bring us closer to the Creator, whether that closeness is in quality or closeness is in our relationship. So when you keep that in mind and you're looking at why is this situation happening, how can I grow from it, what can I learn from it, one of the things you can always learn from everything is how can I be more light-like in this situation, and how can I use this situation to develop a closer relationship with the Creator. And I'm sure if I asked every single one of you listening right now, what are the most important qualities? What is the single most important quality in a friend? Maybe you would write 5 qualities, but at the top, or what should be at least in everybody's top 5, is that they're trustworthy. You know you can trust them. And if you look at your best friends in life, you know that the reason they're your best friends is because you can trust them. When you find out you can't trust a friend, that lowers them on your list, right? You know, you can still be connected to them, but you're not going to trust them the way you used to. Developing that trust is really what keeping the dialogue open all day long is about. Knowing that the Creator has your back, the Creator is the coaching, your greatest coach, your greatest cheerleader, your greatest fan, feeling that intrinsic support, invisible and sometimes visible support, is so essential for not only quote unquote our spiritual success, but also feeling the drive and the desire to persevere when things are difficult. So I invite everyone this week to look at where to evaluate your relationship with the Creator in all aspects. How can you live more light-like? How can you behave in a more light-like way? And how can you develop a more consistent practice of communicating with the Creator every single day? And I want to share actually a tool for that. I want to leave time for at least one question from our listeners, but we have a course, a newly released course on Kabbalah.com, which I will put in the show notes, as well as on weeklyenergyboost.com homepage, that is about the art of spiritual sleep. Now, why I bring that up as a connection to what we've been talking about today, cultivating a closeness with the Creator, is that most people don't realize that sleep is meant to be a spiritual connection as well. And sleep is a huge Achilles heel for a lot of people. Depending on age and life stage, it can be a tremendous challenge. And it's really meant to be an extremely enlightening, rejuvenating, and supportive period of our daily lives. And most of us are not allowing it to do the work for us that it can do. So bringing it up now because sleep, when our soul, according to Kabbalah, when we sleep, parts of our soul elevate to the upper worlds and recharge, rejuvenate, but also download messages. It's almost like we those parts of our soul go back to the mothership, get the resources, the tools, the coordinates it needs for the coming day, and it comes back down. So if you're someone who is particularly challenged around sleep, I'm going to put that the link in the show notes as well as on our homepage, and give it a try, because sometimes, and you may say, oh, my sleep is fine, but I never dream. Not dreaming is also a missed opportunity on a spiritual level, and says something about the work that you're doing during the day. So I'm going to make that available to everyone if you're interested. It's a really valuable asset that we all have, but most of us are not utilizing. And by asset, I mean our sleep. Question, I put together a bunch of questions to choose from. I'm going to pick from one of them here. And I'm actually paraphrasing. I put together like categories of questions. So this is not a verbatim listener question, but this is a common question that we get. Why do I still feel empty, lost, disconnected? And again, different people use different adjectives, even though I'm studying and I think I'm doing the spiritual work. So this is a great question, and I feel like we all have this question when we're stuck for a while in a feeling of emptiness or being lost, or not feeling connected, not feeling energized or energetic. And there's a teaching that comes from the 10 luminous emanations, and I'm going to give you the fancy high-level explanation, and then I'll bring it down to what it means practically. But basically, the 10 luminous emanations is a study of creation, how the world came into physical existence. And it talks there about how there's two different vessels. There's linear vessels and there's circular vessels, and they conduct the light of the Creator in different ways. Now, the circular vessels are the more elevated vessels, and the Kabbalists relate that to when you do feel good in the flow, connected, energized, motivated, right? Like, I like the phrase in the flow because things are good. You feel purpose and you experience results from the effort that you're making, and you quote unquote see the light, right? It feels good. You feel connected, you feel guided, you feel protected. The other kind of vessel is called a linear vessel. And the linear vessel refers to the state that we're in when we're doing the work, but we don't see results, when we don't feel the connection, when we don't feel the inspiration. It's, if you will, the struggle part of our reality. And the struggle doesn't necessarily mean, no money to pay the bills struggle. It can be struggling with dealing with your reality or difficult emotions or difficult people in your life. It doesn't have to be existential struggle. So we each have these vessels within us. We both have the linear vessel, which is the part of us that is activated when we struggle. And then we have the circular vessel, which is the part of us that experiences that feeling of flow, connectedness, meaning, purpose, and direction. So in the study of the 10 luminous emanations, the Ari, Rav Isaac Luria, who wrote the text, explains that even though the circular vessels are the higher vessels, and if you think about it, even in our own minds, that's the goal. We're doing the work that we're doing so that we will feel in the flow, connected, purposeful, etc. But the circular vessels have no light of their own. They don't have the ability to draw light. They're just the receiving vessel. The linear vessel, which you can imagine, even though it's not something physical, it's like a pipe, right? The struggle is the process by which we draw the light into the circular vessel. So what that really means, practically speaking, is it's the times of struggle when you feel empty, lost, disconnected, empty. I know I said it first, but what I mean is like void, lack, lost. The struggle that you go through in that in those times to overcome, to transform, to transcend, to heal, is what creates the moments of feeling in the flow. So the linear vessels are actually what provide light to the circular vessels. So when, even though you're checking all the boxes, you're doing all the right things, you're following all the guidance, and you still don't feel in the flow, it's not that you're doing something wrong. It's that both are necessary for spiritual growth. There needs to be both struggle, effort and reward, effort and reward, effort and reward. And the goal is that in those moments of struggle, when we're operating with our linear vessel, that we will feel the strength and the certainty, knowing not only is this important for me to do for my growth, my healing, my expansion, etc., but it's what's creating my future experience of flow and connection. And when we're in those moments of flow and connection, to know I'm experiencing what I'm experiencing by virtue of the linear vessel. The effort that I made, the struggle that I experienced, it's what creates my experience of flow. And I hope that especially in this month that has been so intense and it's so easy to feel lost and misguided and empty, that answer, it's a question that we've been asked more times than I can count. It's that the memory, the visual, and even again, it shouldn't be a visual, it shouldn't be something physical that you imagine, but that if you're going through a difficult time right now, that difficult time that you're experiencing is generating the light of your future flow. And hopefully that was helpful. And by the way, with that said, keep sending your emails, keep messaging us. We really get a lot of inspiration, and I think it's so meaningful when we hear from you and you share with us what you're going through and how we can support you. So as you know, Weekly Energy Boost is available on all podcast platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. You can follow us on those platforms to get more content to support you in doing the work every week. If you visit us at weeklyenergyboost.com, on our homepage, you'll see the Art of Spiritual Sleep links and lots of other interesting things we think are important for our listeners to know about. You can send us a message there, search through our archives, and of course, click the donate button to help support our podcast and make it possible. But as always, this is a perfect episode to send to someone who needs the inspiration, the motivation, the guidance, and maybe they're not open to hearing it from you, but hopefully what we shared today will help all of us feel not only more connected to our soul and to the light of the Creator, but also to our purpose, to growing in our light likeness. And I'll see you next week on the Weekly Energy Boost.